Hi all, and welcome to Truth, Honour and... Oh God, this is not good. It's reverberating. Let me just check this a minute. See if that's any better. Just a bit. Right, we have a special show with Shane this evening, and we're still getting interference. Let me just see if I can adjust that now. Right. Let me just see if that's okay. Perhaps I'm going to need Shane to talk more in this show because there's a really bad reverberation on this at the moment. Let me just adjust that. Shut that down. Let's just see. Right. It's still... Well, we'll carry on, see how far it goes. At the moment, my voice is reverberating badly, but we'll see how it goes. So, we've had Shane on before, and it was some of our most popular shows. As many will you know, he is the runer, and he has gone about ruining Cabal for our benefit, and some of the unpopular people in the alternative media who like to play fun and games as well. So Shane's a very busy man, and we've been trying to get him on for a while, but in fact we're both busy, but tonight he's on. Hi Shane.
Hello.
Let me just check that.
Would it make you feel better if I repeated everything I said?
Right, okay.
We would both be echoing.
Yes. Well, it just appears at the moment that it's just mine that's echoing. The sound appears to be okay on the page. So, we'll carry on. I'll just have to try and speak less. Right. So, you've been rather busy since the last show we had. Of course, the last one was with Drake, and it was a good show. So, how are things with you since the last show?
You've been rather busy since. Things are well. Everything has been going well. Just doing the podcast when I have time, and trying to speak to as many people as possible when they're looking to speak with me, and see what we can come together on. And I don't know, it's a pretty interesting time. I mean, everything that I said last time has been kind of rolling out. We've been discovering new things every day, and that process of everything being unveiled to us is becoming quite clear, and we just have to start trying to make some sense of it. And I guess that's been part of my busyness, is trying to clear out some of the things that aren't helping us make sense of it all.
Yeah.
That's all. And that's about that.
So the podcast, what was the intention behind them, and how have they gone to date?
Well, the intention was always to just kind of get everyone telling their story. I've always been of the opinion that this whole whistleblower circus and whatnot, unless it's just unnecessary, because there's so many people out there with information, and we all need to start bringing that information to the table, no matter if it's a person who's usually on a speaking platform or not. Everyone's got a story, and it's about time we start sharing those stories, because it's missing pieces of this bigger puzzle, and we're never going to put the whole puzzle together unless we all bring our stories together and talk amongst ourselves and learn to communicate with each other even when we disagree. And so that's been about that, and so far it's been great. Met some people on air, and worked some things out with some people on air, worked some things out within myself on air, and it's been serving its purpose in that way, so I've been happy.
That's good. Right, I've just adjusted the sound, but some are saying, yet again, mine's too low. They do this on the Skype, but unfortunately, the higher it goes, the more it reverberates through my ear. So we'll see. Right, where are we next? So the podcast, I'll say, some of them are really interesting, and it is about, you know, all of us kind of having an input, because, you know, too many are waiting for the saviour, whether that be some of the people that are familiar on the internet, or ETs coming down, or the government. You know, the reality is it's a book about all us, isn't it?
Exactly. We are all of that. We don't need that from someone else. And the quicker we realize that, the quicker we can actually get to everything that we want. It's all right there. It's not that I had ever meant to say that we can't have all of the things that we want within this reality. We can. It's just that we can't keep looking for it from other places. Once we realize that we all are capable of all of these things and have all of this within ourselves, that's when everything will start to unravel. It's kind of like Neo in the Matrix. You know, he's starting to believe. For each of us as individuals, it's about believing in ourselves and trusting ourselves and learning to develop whatever that concept may mean, faith in ourselves. That not only can we handle ourselves within this matrix or within this three-dimensional reality, but we're handling our business in all the other ones too. And there's a purpose for these ones, and we exist within these ones for a reason and for a purpose, and a purpose we're capable of. It doesn't matter how much the deck seems to be stacked against us, we're perfectly capable of getting out from behind it. We just have to convince ourselves of that and remember that and you know, see it for ourselves.
Yes. One of the questions that have been put forward to us both is how we met. Do you remember?
Well, it was definitely through Chloe.
Yes.
We talked about it on our podcast with Chloe when she came on my podcast. And yeah, she had sent an email originally, and then we ended up talking. It's something I always prefer to do. It's just easier than trying to type messages back and forth when the subject gets too big. So we started talking that way, and yeah, I guess we've been talking ever since.
Yes, it's just over 12 months now, isn't it? About 14 months, something like that. And we've banged heads quite a bit, and come up with a lot of ideas and solutions and a whole heap of different things. So yes, I've enjoyed my time with you, and it's been good to interact.
Likewise, and it's also introduced me to a lot of good people through you, like people who were following Cosmic Voice while you were there and now follow this show, and seen some beautiful people doing some beautiful things online and trying to do what I hope everyone will do, which is, you know, step up and own their own beauty and be that for the world to see, and not be afraid of any kind of ridicule or anyone thinking maybe that they're weird or quirky or whatever word you want to put on that, and just be yourself and show everyone why you're beautiful.
Yes. You know, the quirky ones are the ones that can't see. Yep. Or won't hear. You know, it's I'm going to get into that because the psychological side of being in this community is a big problem to many. It takes quite a lot to walk down a lonely path as such. People have lost family members and friends and loved ones, and it's not easy. What would your message be to those people?
I know it's not easy. I've witnessed it so many times now. It's very much like a grieving process. It seems to have all the same symptoms and cause and effect of someone very close to you dying, or a piece of you dying. And So you can treat it like that and kind of go through steps with it where you allow yourself to feel out the different emotions that come with that. Get to the point of acceptance with it all and process it all in a healthy way, instead of just allowing the defeat to happen. Just understand that you woke up to it for a reason. You brought that into your existence for a reason. You wouldn't have done that if you didn't know that you could handle it, and have that belief in yourself will carry you through it. So a lot of people do that even when they're religious or spiritual and identify with a god, right? They'll put themselves in the hands of God. Well, don't hesitate to put yourself in the hands of yourself and realize Absolutely. That you have all that inner knowing and guidance in there. And if you kind of, instead of allowing the pain to take over, just try to focus on what you know is coming at the other side, which is an awakening and an ownership of your own light, and try and focus on the end game instead of the pain that you're feeling. It's like the swamp of sadness in the never-ending story. Just keep walking, and once you get to the other end of that swamp, you'll be okay. But if you allow the sadness to overtake you, you might sink into that swamp. And we don't need to lose anyone, so please don't do that. Just realize that there's a big bright light on the end of that swamp, which is you, and it's worth the process.
Yes. I have always used the word Tanath said, where she said, never put anyone above your own heart. And obviously some people who follow religion will find that rather difficult, but it is what it is. This is why humanity has been downtrodden, in my opinion, because they've made us feel very small. We're incapable of many things, low self-esteem, must fit in with the pack, and a whole heap of other problems that have we've had to endure, the mind control, and it's a very difficult and lonely path, and I think it's important that people understand that. Shane's been prevalent in addressing that, and obviously people know that we've done that both on the page and in private, and it's important people stay strong and calm, particularly with times that are coming up.
Well, it's all about trying to empower ourselves right now, because that's exactly what we need to do. We need to remember that that's what they've been beating the shit out of us for, is to keep us disempowered. And if that was all that they really wanted, there's a reason for that. And therefore the first step should be taking that power back and giving them the proverbial finger and walking in our own path with it, and stop letting what they're doing cause us to feel that way. Because we can do it. We just have to remember that we can.
Yes,
very close.
Absolutely. Right, I've just changed the setting, so if people can let me know if anything's altered, or they can still hear me or not, because I'm still having reverberation issues. Right. So on the first show, we covered a range of topics, and I'd like some updates if you would. And where are we with the parents as it stands?
Nothing's really changed. It's an autopilot for them almost now, because what's about to happen is going to happen, and all they're really here for is to take the next steps once it's over. So they're kind of just riding the wave like we are, in their own different way. Still the same number, still the same kind of general behavior where the two are involved, the other one is not, and all they're really doing is making sure that everything goes as according to plan, which is merely a matter of hitting certain milestones. It's not like controlling every small aspect of things. And as long as that happens, they don't really have to do much. So, not really a lot to report there.
No.
I don't know that there will be until a point in time where we may not even be able to communicate like this. So, let's hope that it stays that way in a way. Like, just because, I mean, I think if they did start throwing any curveballs, that would mean bad things. And I think that the way that things are set right now, it doesn't necessarily mean bad things. It just is what it is.
So they're not interfering as much as they used to. Is that correct?
That's right. Like I had said before, I guess they're just letting the human components do what they do. And the end result of that, however it turns out or however it plays out, is what they want. And as long as it plays out in whatever nature it plays out, then they have what they want. So they don't really have much to do in this point. That's why it's the focus is more on all of the misguided people that have been in control of the secret projects and bases and various technologies that can need the focus, or that can get the focus, because they're the ones who are kind of the children playing with toys that they understand, but they don't have the proper amount of responsibility to be using. And we'll continue along the path of discoveries, whatever you want to call that, the unveiling, the unraveling, the quickening. There's so many words for it, but it all means the same thing. It's just this period we're going through where what disclosure, I guess, we're going to get is rolling out. So
the path of the discoveries, as I understand it, is going to escalate.
Well, it definitely is.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's every day now. Sometimes 3 or 4 times a day, you'll see different things where it's just like, wait a second, where the fuck did that come? Excuse me, like, how did that, like, why weren't they talking about that 6 months ago? And why all of a sudden, like, I can go buy that now? Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it's going to happen. It's almost going to be like one of those things where things just kind of materialize into our point of view. There'll be technologies coming out so fast that you'll be on the streetcar or subway or bus one day and see someone holding something and be like, what is that? So,
yes,
let's enjoy the ride.
So, did you expect that things will really roll out between now and the end of the year?
I always hope I'm wrong when I'm answering this question, so I just want to state that right off the top. But I definitely think that whatever is going to happen more or less any time now. Certain things that are variables for them, they can't control the timing of, and that timing is now. So they have to do something. And it's, I don't know, there's a lot of different probabilities of what that something may be, but timing-wise, I don't think it can be very long from now. Most people are looking at it being tied to the presidency and that whole thing in the fall, but nobody knows for sure yet. I think I've said this before as well. It's going to be a spur of the moment decision, which kind of makes it a little scarier, but also gives us the opportunity to not give too much time or focus into waiting for it to happen, and to just continue doing whatever we can do between now and whatever does happen, to be ready for it, both within ourselves and without ourselves. So, that's about my best answer there. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Anything to update on the covens?
No, the covens involved are very small because it's really just the 3, and they're all very similar. The covens are almost all the same. They're just they have certain purposes, I suppose, that are part of the functionality of what people call the Illuminati, but they don't really, it's not very significant. And so really they're kind of like figureheads that nobody has quite figured out how to tell that they don't really have a purpose anymore. And so other people just haven't figured out that they don't have a purpose anymore. But I'm trying to think of an analogy for that. It's almost like a expanding business when they get to a point where a certain division is kind of obsolete or isn't needed anymore, but maybe the person in that role is just on the verge of retirement anyways, so you figure, okay, we'll just let it slide for a couple years until we just dissolve that whole aspect of it. Because that's a lot of what's happening within the structure in general. Is just, I've said, like, it's cutting out all of the fat, it's streamlining the structure back into a way that's actually going to be relevant moving into the future, because a lot of things are changing. And once all of that changes, a lot of what they've been doing is irrelevant, especially like I said it before it really started to happen, but the pedophilia aspects of things, like the sexual abuse things getting rolled out and exposed, it's all because a lot of those things are closing down. I don't mean to say it's all ended. I just mean a lot of different aspects of programs and projects that involved behavior like that are starting to close down, and you're going to see them get exposed as that happens, because people are getting out of it, and the level of control that people have had over them starts to lessen, and programs start to slip, and people start to speak, and the next thing you know, it's kind of starts to become a little bit more common knowledge. And it's kind of sick because they bank on that, because it becomes so much noise all at once that they can almost have it ignored, right?
Yes.
Get it all riled up at once, and then make something else happen as a distraction, and people completely forget about it in a hurry. But it all came out, and I mean, we've seen that with some of the things that have come out in the UK recently, where they're making a lot of noise in their build-up, but once it gets to like that point of conviction, so to speak, something else is going on, and nobody really notices what happened in conclusion.
So, is there how can I put this, a higher force pushing this, or is it just a case of it's run its natural course, or more a
all
case
of the above? You could call the higher force the natural force, right? So
yeah,
it's a funny thing, because if you coincide, like, say, the wave and the universal balance with what's going on with when I say they're like the world government controllers, with their plans, it's all coinciding to a point right now where they're all happening. In a lot of ways, they all look the same, because there are a lot of shedding skin, so to speak, or a lot of getting rid of aspects of self that are no longer needed, all the way from the individual to the organization. And so they both are almost working in tandem, despite having completely different goals, if that makes sense. Meaning to say that, this energetic frequency that we're feeling, it is kind of forcing the shadow self on us in such a way that it's clearing out a lot of space. And that's no different than what's happening to the Illuminati and what's happening within various black projects in the military, or what people like to call the Cabal and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's a global process as we see it. It's actually a galactic and universal process as everything sees it. So, but it is all kind of coming to the same thing, where all of this stuff, it's going to come out one way or another, no matter how it comes out. It's going to be out there on the table, and the moving forward is all going to be determined on what we do with it once it's there.
Yes, how we deal with it. This is why I've focused on the shows about getting ready. You know, we've all heard it before on the promises, 2 weeks. Sorry, Drake.
2 weeks.
And so people get battle weary with the promises, and of course there's all kinds of other promises of RVs and you know, bank resets and everything else, and everything's come and gone, and dates have come and gone. But I do feel the next coming months, certainly over the next 18 months, but I think more over the next 6 months, things are seriously going to ramp up.
I mean, you could go into a simulation and watch 4 or 5 different versions of it, and it would happen at 4 or 5 different precise times. Yeah. So there's that's what I mean by nobody really knows, and it is going to be kind of a cause and effect moment decision to trigger whatever happens next. In terms of the energy, I mean, that's something it's intangible, right? Like, it's not something that is event-based in terms of, like, okay, here's the day, because it's a process. It's a building up, apical, spill-off process. And when people are, if you're looking for, like, a concrete event for that, it may not come. It will come for you, but it's not going to come on, like, a global 1 day, 1 hour, everybody sees the light type thing, because it's a process. It's not an event. And like a wave is, I mean, you know, there's a crescendo point of a wave, but even that's a curve, right? It's not a 90-degree angle. So,
right, where are we next? Anything to update on the Draco?
No, there's been a lot of talk, because, I mean, the whole reptilian concept gets messed up, where we don't know what Draco from other reptilian are a lot of the time. So that can confuse things. And the assumption that when the Draco Empire left, that meant every single Draco on the planet would be gone, that's just kind of, no, that wouldn't happen, didn't happen. Some of them are just here and working with us, and that's why they're still around. I think somebody was asking for names, but my own kind of opinion on that is, I don't think that when it comes to names, the names that you know and would expect to be here would be the ones that are here. So even if I were to give a name, it wouldn't make any sense, and it wouldn't fit into whatever that other kind of core belief that the public or that people hold. Obviously, that one son he's not going anywhere, but I like to say that he's irrelevant. And so I'm not really sure. I mean, people could throw names at me, but I don't. I think my answer would probably be no to most of them.
Yeah. But some of the reports I get, that the one son is dictating many things that are not certainly not for our benefit. Is that your understanding?
Of course, that's his function, his role. That's how they see him. So until they see him differently, which I don't anticipate ever happening, that'll be. He'll go down with their ship too. That's why he was late. That's why he was left on it.
I understand, for the benefit of the listeners, that many are not taking orders from him anymore, and so hopefully he seemed to have upset quite a few. So we'll see.
That's right. I mean, a lot of them are kind of waking up to the grand deception that they've been under, right? The fact that they don't know it all either, and the people that they think know it all don't know it all either, and so everyone's kind of grasping at whatever they can get a hold of at this point, knowing that none of that was real. So, I would rather be anyone listening to this than any one of them right now. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, it is encouraging that the way, the reports I get, that people are starting to see the message, not just in the alternative community, but a lot of the Cabal are stepping down. Is that your understanding as well?
I guess it depends on what you call the Cabal. I mean, people are stepping out of the
program.
Lower level, that too, and lower level positions even within society. I mean, we've got police finally walking away, saying, you know what, I'm not going to do that. We've got military some places doing that. So yeah, that'll happen for sure. That's definitely natural. Obviously, the way that we see all of this playing out is everything kind of being forced back here in terms of what they've been doing out there, say off planet, if they're even going truly off planet, getting forced back to Earth so that they can't have any of those toys anymore, and being left in a spot where they actually have to just run their programs here and see how far they can get. And with the more and more walking away, like, that leaves them less assets, obviously, which I guess creates a bit of a weakness.
So a case of what goes up must come down over the coming months.
And either way, I mean, whether they enact it or whether we enact it, it's going to seem fairly beneficial to everybody when it first happens. Yeah. So it's going to be very hard to tell in the earlier months of the transition, kind of who's in control of things anyways. So even once all the way through that process, there will be more walking aways, and the other side of it is, and I mean, I'm sure you've run into it before. If you ever meet someone new and explain, what a secret society does to them, often the response will be to join, right? So there are going to be people who want to join the post-world control structure, despite the fact that others are going to want to walk away. So it'll be an interesting transition, and that's why looking for that savior without is what is so dangerous during the transition, because everything's going to be playing the savior. Everything's going to present itself. Every demon, every angel is going to be coming along and saying, "Hey, we can do this, we can do that," and it's too much to choose from, and that's why you just got to do it for yourself instead of relying on that outside source, because the more we understand about what's going on out there, it's not going to make the picture any smaller. It's going to make the picture a lot bigger. And if we're confused about it now, we're going to be more confused with the more information they dump on us. And it's going to take a whole other period of almost unlearning what we just finished unlearning to learn again. And that's something that's got to be considered. And so that's, again, why the focus within gives you the opportunity that when all of that stuff starts happening, your focus is where it's supposed to be already, instead of getting distracted by all the bells and whistles and all the shiny lights. I mean, I'm sure we're all going to have fun with it to some extent, but instead of letting it consume us and letting it knock us off the track of making sure that we're not falling into another control system because everything seems gravy for a while, we're going to have to keep that focus on ourselves and what's going on around us secondary.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be well, for me, it's going to be a fun period, but I'm expecting to be shocked, even though, I've researched quite a lot. I've spoken to quite a lot and got, opinions from many people. I just dread to think what the average person, the people we call the sheep, are going to react. They just really won't know which way to go. And I'm hoping that the likes of this show and the many others out there, and the people in the community, instead of I think we'll all, to a degree, will want to say, "We told you so." But we have to stay calm and take a step back, and perhaps we'll become the teachers to those people to smooth over the transition as such.
There will definitely be an aspect of that going on, because and there's definitely no harm in going through something yourself while you're teaching it. it's often the best times. So, but there's definitely going to be an aspect of that where people who aren't up to speed on things at all are going to have a much steeper learning curve. And they are going to rely on people that, like I've even seen it in months since, or years, since like 9/11, because I've talked to people prior to that happening and people who came to me after that happened and went, oh, I think you were right, you know. And since then, other events have triggered that same response. So this is going to be a much bigger version of that same thing where people are going to remember, you know, that Thomas guy down the block who was a little bit weird and used to talk about aliens when, you know, people on TV are talking about them too.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what something you just said then. Maybe I'll come back to it. A lot of people, including myself, are witnessing or feeling or having the perception of time speeding up. Is that something that's real, or is that just another part of the illusion?
I think that it's definitely real. I think that, I mean, the idea of vibrating vibrating higher, it just simply means moving faster. And if everything is vibrating higher, then everything is moving faster. And that would affect time and space, and just as it does us. So, yeah, that's essentially what is happening. That's why one of the words for it has been the quickening, is because it's a very descriptive word of the process. It's quickening us both in time and in progression, so that we can adapt along with the frequency change.
Right. Where are we next? The Matrix, as you described, some of which in your blog and some of the podcasts. Where are we up to with that? Because there's an awful lot of people experiencing, for want of a better word, glitches in it. People thinking they are going to a certain place, watch the building go past, turn round, and the building's not there. It's further down the road like they thought it was to begin with. Lots of other things like that as well.
Yes, I mean, the word matrix kind of implies a simulation, and we are several layers deep in simulation in the existence that we are in now. From starting at the organic hologram, what people have called the Saturn Moon Matrix, as well as what people have referred to as the holographic Draco grid, are two different aspects or two different types of matrices that have caused a simulated reality to play out over the actual reality. On top of that, we have the powers that be, or the basis projects and all of these different things doing their simulations as well, which affect our memories when we get out of them. And so there's a few different aspects that play into that, and one would be a lot of people are coming out of projects that are no longer running and have no recollection of having ever been in them, but they do have these messed up little memories that stick around and nag them from various simulations and programs that they had been through. And a lot of these things can appear like a whole other set of memories, almost like what you would imagine if you went through, say, an age regression process, where you lived out 20 years and then suddenly you were 20 years younger again. Well, that 20 years is still in your memory bank, total recall style, right? And so in a way, it's still knowledge that you've held. And so that comes out when you get out of programs and you're no longer being, having your mind control conditioned by them. It'll start to slip and you'll start to have some of those things come back, and they will appear as these alternate dimension-like realities. We also have the multiversal reality of the original hologram natural organic creation, which is a multiverse, has infinite amounts of whatever you want to call them, dimensions, realities, alternate timelines, whatever you want to call that, which occasionally bleed through and overlap each other, and people can, because you're existing in all of them, you kind of, that memory can kind of bleed over as well. It's all part of your Akashic record type universal consciousness that you've stored for forever, and it's no different than having a past life recall come back. It just, the separation is different because the past life is clearly in the past as opposed to happening right now at the same time in a different timeline. So there's that. There's glitches caused by, the Saturn Moon Matrix type technology, as well as when the Draco grid technology turned off. That would have created this almost like what people are calling a Mandela effect within your memory, where you would have some memories that may not apply to you, meaning that they're from another reality that is not this one, and that can get confusing as well. So it's a bunch of different possibilities. It can also just be, even as simple and I don't know, I don't want to use the word mundane, but as simple as a dream that you had that was very, very vivid that you hold like a memory. That happens to people, right? And I'm not saying that that's the whole cause of it at all, so don't get upset with what I've just said, please. It's just another thing to consider. There's a lot of different layers of what can go on with your memory and your mind. The mind is the interface for all of these various types of realities is not perfect, and sometimes they overlap. I think that puts a nice big bow on that question.
Yes, absolutely. Apologies a bit to people who are struggling to hear me. My volume is pushed up, but it's reverberating right back into my ear, so I'm hearing myself twice. So if I'm a bit not speaking fluidly, you'll know why. I've tried turning the sound down, but I have to turn it back up so you can hear. So I'm struggling with that at the moment. Right, we'll carry on as best we can. You can hear Shane, and that's the important thing. You can hear me again, and as normal on Thursday. Are the Cabal going to ramp up things as, how can I describe it? As things become more obvious, do you expect them to ramp things up from their point of view?
Absolutely. I mean, it's happening already, and it's not going to stop until they hit whatever point it is that they flip it over and pull that, or turn the engine over finally, or pull that trigger, so to speak, and make whatever event they're going to create become the catalyst for the transition that they need to create in order to have what they want, which is a little bit of what we want and a lot of what they want.
Are these current events, the likes of Dallas and the Orlando thing, smacks to me of false flags designed to put people in fear and confuse people and scatter people? We're expecting an increase in them. Is that part of it, do you think?
Yeah, definitely already happening as well. I mean, it went from once every couple months to once a month, and now we're having a couple a day, and every other week. And yeah, that's part of the same question, I think. That is them ramping up, right? It's going to come from all angles. Various things are going to start kind of just causing division and basic anger, like fear response to anger in the population until they're ready. And that way we're in the state that they want us to be when they're ready.
Yeah.
I don't like saying it. I mean, I hope that I'm wrong, and I wish that it wasn't true, and I just wish everybody would stop asking me, because I don't like saying it. But that seems to be what's going to happen, yes.
I happen to think that, or happen to see slightly different. I'm seeing signs of their desperation, and the fact that they have to roll these out on a weekly basis. And what's encouraging to me is most of them are backfiring, and I can't see how that's being beneficial to them if all their plans are backfiring. And as each event, be it Dallas or the Orlando one, where it's now become quite clear that nobody died between 2 and 5 a.m. in the morning, and people only died when the SWAT team went in, which suggests there was nothing to do with the Muslim portrayed. It's waking more and more people up. I think it's, well, I'm glad it is, but I think it's backfiring on them. You see it different?
It's definitely backfiring on them. I think the only difference in the way that we see it is, I don't see it as desperation. I see it as exactly what they've always planned to do. I had said it right from the beginning of our conversations that, you know, the exposure of all these things and demonization of all of this stuff is meant to happen, so that whenever they make that transition, on the other end of that transition, whoever is there to pick up the pieces, so to speak, can become that trusted government and can become that savior hero entity. And I do see that reflected in what's going on here, because as they're doing this, all the other countries that I believe are going to be that savior hero figure are the ones pointing the finger back and saying, ha ha, and saying, like, that's nonsense, like, don't pay attention, like, don't believe that, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the way that I see it may be based on the way that I have seen it all along, of course. Maybe I'm just not seeing anything change, but I do see it almost playing out exactly how I said it would, that it's going to continue to get worse until the point where everybody realizes how bad it is, and everyone's looking at what is called the Cabal most often as this evil entity that needs to go, and then suddenly someone comes in and takes them out, not understanding that it's not like we have a one world government already. It's been there for a really long time, and all of these guys work together. I mean, how many pictures do we need to see of Putin holding hands with these guys before we realize that he's not just doing that for show? He's doing the other stuff for show. And I'm sorry that upsets people, but I'm either right or I'm wrong, and time will tell. And I just don't know why. I don't know why we think that one president is owned by corporations and banks and another one is not.
Yes, I've always said on the shows that Putin's kind of variable. There was certain reports last year that perhaps he was given a different message to follow a different path. You know, we keep hearing in the media that Putin's got all this knowledge to sink America, or sink certain factions of the American groups, the Bushes and Zionists, mainly to do with 9/11 and a few other things. But
I don't doubt that he does. Just for the
nothing
record.
ever materializes.
It's true, and I mean, if you were to ask most people if they thought they could take if they could take an American president, sit them down, discuss this all with them, convince them that what they were doing was wrong, and put them back in the White House, that president could do anything about it?
No.
I don't think that they would think that. Why then would they take the president of another country, replace him with a different entity, put him back there, and suddenly he can do something about it? It's just not logical thinking, in my opinion. Yeah.
Fair enough. This is going to sound a fairly bizarre question, but it can have some basis of reality to it. In essence, are the Cabal there to wake the general populace up?
As a grand scheme of things point of view, my own personal opinion is that is essentially why the dark exists to begin with, is so that people will find light. And so from that perspective, I would say yes. It's definitely not their intention. But I do think that in the grand scheme of things, from us as source, that we've put them here as the opponent, and we've created that as well. And so from that perspective, yeah.
We all get mad at them at times, and rightly so. Some of the things has gone. It can have a beneficial effect, but some of the stuff that they've done appears to go way beyond a learning curve as such.
Absolutely.
Who or what implements that? Is that a general human trait, or is that an outside influence that's doing the more heinous stuff?
Well, I don't think that it's... The way that I look at it is you look at a species and they may have a group of traits or possible behaviors, and then it all comes down to choice as to whether or not they actually live those out, right? So you could take a species and give them all the most prone to violence genetics and all of that, and if they're raised in an environment where it's just not nurturing to that, then they probably won't turn out that way. It's the same thing with like a pit bull. If you raise a pit bull like a kid and you don't ever hit it and you don't teach it to be mean, and when it is a puppy and it starts to be aggressive, you don't enable that. You stop playing with them if they start biting you, that type of thing. Then that pit bull will grow up to be a sweetheart of a dog, even though it's genetically built to kill. So if it's true for a dog, then I can't see it not being true for a human being, or Draco reptilian, or Syrian reptilian, or any other type of insectoid, or insectilian, or anything like that. I don't think that it's... Yeah, I see choice as having way too much of an effect on what the being becomes. I mean, environmental effects, obviously a huge part of that. But we have teachings like those from Bruce Lipton who show that sometimes our perception of the environmental information can change the result of that environmental information. So if that's true, then apply that to that situation. And you wouldn't be able to say that. You wouldn't be able to say that, a human is going to be violent or evil or do heinous activity inherently if you were to just leave it alone. You don't know that. That human is going to make choices based on its environment. And if you introduce control and triggers to cause them to be violent into their environment, and they react to those triggers, then that's no longer just them. That's partially choice, and it's partially the environment. And that's why the focus always needs to be the person taking responsibility for themselves, because you do have that choice of how you react to your environment. I don't know what example to give, but I mean, you can take... I had a friend, as an example, when I was very young, who, was raped and beaten on a regular basis by their father, and she grew up to be a loving, caring, empathetic, nice person who never held grudges and never let that break her. Right? So, I mean, you could put other people in that same situation and they come out of that incredibly traumatized and incredibly broken. So it must be, at some level, a choice response to it. And I think that if we empower ourselves with that knowledge, and we empower ourselves with the idea that we can choose, then I think then we can actually start enacting that power onto our our environment, and that inherently changes it. It's breaking the flow, or it's disrupting the flow or the cycle of abuse every time one of us tries to choose something different.
Right. We're at the top of the hour. I've managed to fix my reverberation by taking the headphones off, so I'm listening to you from afar. We'll have a couple of songs, and then we'll be back with the second hour. Right, here we go. I know Shane will like this one. Hi all, and welcome back to the second hour. I'm hoping the sound's gone better. I'm kind of not listening through the headphones, so it's not reverberating now, so I can speak freely, which is better. The board's playing up with the music as well, so all fun and games. So we'll carry on with the show. Hopefully it hasn't interrupted things too much. Right. Where were we? We kind of covered the last bit on the blog you did, Shane. Would you say that was successful in its implementation of what it set out to do?
Yes and no. It was successful for what I had intended. I don't know how successful it was for the rest of you. So, yes and no, I guess. But I don't really have any regrets about it. It introduced me to a lot of good people, and yeah, it turned out well.
Good. Are you at liberty or aware of anything the Cabal are about to put out? Would you be able to discuss any of that?
What do you mean by about to put out, as far as like technologies and stuff?
Yes. Or any fun and games, so to speak.
Oh, Jesus.
Put you on the spot a bit there. Well, you answer what you can, and you know, we're not here to trip people up. So
no, I've said it before. Yeah, I've said it before that they've got a few different tricks in their playbook, right? Like, and we've heard them all before. I mean, the causing something to bring in martial law, whatever that happens to be, whether it's some type of off-world threat, comet, asteroid coming, maybe aliens, maybe Nibiru, whatever they choose to go with as a series of possibilities. They could do something viral, some type of virus that causes some type of pandemic outbreak that we need to deal with, and that becomes their reason, or and use some technology to create something more Earth-based, like what we've seen in Fukushima or Katrina. Yeah. So whatever. I mean, they've got a lot of different options. I don't know. I don't think that they know. It's my own personal belief that they won't know until they choose it. I'm voting for the zombie apocalypse. I would like you to get on board with me because that's the easiest one to deal with. I'm kind of half joking here, but
yeah.
There's nobody knows, and I honestly think that anyone who tells you that they do know is probably lying to you, because I don't think that they know. I think that it is, like I said, a couple different ways that it's going to be a spur of the moment thing. They've got a bunch of things on tap, and whatever they decide at the last moment. And that plays into the whole battle between factions as well, because it's kind of like different factions have control over the different types of events, right? Yeah. So like faction A has false flag aliens, faction B has zombies, faction C has world disaster. Just arbitrary examples. So some of the like argument or battle that's going on between faction A, B, and C is, no, let's do the zombies, no, let's do the aliens, no, let's do this. And it is going to be kind of a cause and effect thing, kind of what we're, where the consciousness is kind of at in terms of what they're not ready for, and kind of throw that at them. And I think that that's a lot of why the predictive programming in the movies and media is kind of drawing out all of the different situations, is to kind of see which ones we lean towards the most and go the opposite direction.
Yes. So, Thanks for that. Right. We've covered this slightly in the past, but I'd like to perhaps go into more detail on it and what has been described as the loop and the what appears to be 13,000 year cycles, and we appears to have been stuck in the same 13,000 year cycle for at least 5 or 6 times. Is that your understanding, and where do we go with that?
Well, I don't know, this is kind of branching into a part of my own personal theories that I don't really want to talk about too much because I don't know that they help anyone or benefit anyone, so I'll be kind of general. But a lot of people do seem to have that almost deja vu of feeling like we've been through this before, almost like we've been repeating the same cycle for a long time. And there's different aspects to that as well, because civilizations seem to work on a cycle as well. There's no definite number in terms of time how that cycle works, but it seems to go through this apex of living or existing through nature, adopting technology, rising up through technology, creating that mass civilization, and then falling and resetting, making way for the next civilization. So we see that when we look through archaeology. If you get into like Graham Hancock's work or something like that, you'll see a lot of evidence of the fact that that happens. So that's one aspect to what people feel in terms of deja vu. We've been through this before. We're in a loop type feeling. The simulations that are running, some of the programs would have put people through those loops. So there's that. Again, it's a similar answer to what I gave earlier with the Matrix question, because I do think it's the same thing. I do think it's a system or a symptom of being in some type of a simulation that is repeating a certain portion of human history for an unknown reason. And I could speculate on the reason, but we'll just leave it as an unknown reason. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of different people who have spoken up about that. It seems to be happening more and more. We also seem to start seeing the mainstream getting on board with this. Various futurists coming out and saying they think that eventually we're going to end up in a Matrix type reality. And they've even speculated, and most people would theorize that if that were true, one of the first things we would probably do was create a reset on civilization within the simulation or within the virtual reality, within the Matrix reality, in order to replay what we just went through and hopefully make better decisions moving forward. Especially if that reason for creating that simulation happens to be that you're at a point in time where things aren't good. I mean, we have lots of stories of, say, other entities coming back here and giving us a story that, we got to a point in our civilization where we were so toxic that we destroyed our DNA, and now we've come back in time and to try and figure out how to fix that. Same type of idea. If humanity were to have got to a point in the future where we had that type of technology, that type of artificial technology that we could create a matrix or a virtual simulation within, which we do now, so it's not a future thing. It's a matter of if we were to use a technology in that way at a point in time where, say, we were on the brink of some type of global disaster and we had a very limited amount of time in order to figure out how to fix it, the best way to figure out how to fix it would be to start going back into a simulation where it wasn't in real time and trying things. So theoretically, you would run back through the same cycle of time to see what's occurred that created that disaster at the end of time to occur, right? Like all the different steps along the way, so that you may be able to maybe use time technology to go back in time and fix those different milestones that were there. So that's, obviously a very theoretical or hypothetical answer, but I think that would explain where that feeling is coming from. And obviously not everybody in the world feels it, but I'm sure enough people listening have felt it, and that's why that question was there.
Yes. This is a theory of mine. I would like your opinion on it, which I think would be beneficial for the listeners. Certainly over the last, we've seen enough people put out a lot of research about the last 13,000 years and the last 26,000 years. So it suggests there is some sort of loop, or want of a better word, or cycle. And it appears from what took place 26,000 years ago and also what took place 13,000 years ago, is there a possibility that humanity, when it reaches technological level, is interfered with? Or is it a case that we kind of mess up with the technological stuff and we end up resetting?
Really, all I could give you on that would be opinion. And I think that what has happened is that technology was introduced at a point in time where those who it was introduced to weren't ready for it, and they were never properly introduced to it in a way like, say, a good teacher would, right? They were just kind of had it dumped on them. And they didn't know how to use it, and they didn't know how to behave with it, and they didn't see its pitfalls because they didn't really truly understand it. And I think that is what caused that type of cycle, or what has caused that type of cycle in our past, where technology gets to a point and other things have happened. But in our most recent past, I mean, I think that some of that was related to... Okay, let's go back to Atlantis. I think that the fall of the Atlantean civilization was directly linked to the creators of the Atlantis civilization and wherever they came from. And so I think that that was more of an unplanned type of end of that civilization. And I know at the let's say 13,000 year ago ballpark, at the end of the first Draco cycle, that's definitely what ended things, was essentially a war that destroyed the bulk of the infrastructure, I guess, for the civilization they were creating, and they had to start over again.
So is it a case, or more a case of technology being given to us as humanity, or is it something, a mixture of what we've created and we're just unable to cope with it, for want of a better word?
Well, again, that would come down to the choices involved, right? Like it was all like, you know, at the time, the choices that were made once that technology was introduced to them, we can say in retrospect that those choices obviously weren't the best, because the outcome wasn't very positive, right? Hindsight's always 20/20 though, so, you know, it's not easy when you're presented with that. Especially, I mean, like, we've heard the phrase like of magic being indistinguishable from technology, right? Or technology being indistinguishable from magic, so we'd reverse that. And really, like, if you have, let's just theoretically say you've got a species that understands magic to some extent, but they're not all powerful in it, and then you come along and you show them a technology that's supersedes their magical natural abilities, they're going to look at that as being, like, you know, godlike and something that they want. So that's where the choice comes in. A lot of people would make the same choice, obviously, that, you know, if you had the choice between sleeping in a bed and sleeping on the floor, you'd probably choose the bed. And if you had the choice between meditating for 4 years to reach nirvana or plugging yourself into a machine for 4 minutes to reach nirvana, you're probably going to choose the machine. And that's the lesson that's taught to us in a lot of different types of philosophy and religions and whatnot, and even Star Wars with the path of the dark side and the path of the light side. You know, the path of the dark side, it's quicker, it's easier, and it's very powerful, but the path of the light side is obviously a lot more enriching, and when you get to the end of it, you have the wisdom in order to wield that power in a way that doesn't destroy, and that's the difference. Technology can be introduced to a species who's kind of gone through the natural progression without a whole lot of interference and learned and kind of reached their apical of civilization on their own. Technology could be introduced in a controlled form at that point to a civilization that could definitely be of benefit. I mean, like, think about some of the, like, medical technology that we could bring forward that could help us. Think of the free energy technology, right? But if you were to just dump that all on us at once, there's also that possibility that we become incredibly irresponsible with it and incredibly lazy and incredibly destructive. So if it's like teaching anyone anything, that's kind of why, secret societies have their initiation systems, and a lot of like other spiritual masters have initiation systems. That's all to kind of let you get so far with it, process that, and then give you a little bit more and let you process that instead of dumping it all on you at once and letting you go crazy. And I think that's kind of the danger that we're seeing with this path of discoveries, is that it's all going to be coming out at once, and it's going to be such an overwhelming thing. It already has been, right? Like even in the last 5 to 10 years, it already has been. And so it's just going to continue, and it's just going to, because we haven't ever had that break where someone came along and said, guys, like, you can do certain things without this technology. We don't know any better, and we're going to keep getting all of this technology until, and embracing it and loving it and whatnot, and not realizing that we're kind of putting ourselves into a trap where someone is still in control of that technology. Someone who doesn't necessarily have your best interests in mind is still in control of that technology. The manufacturing of it, the way that it's powered, the way that it's distributed, all of that will still be under their control. So it's that just, to me
is part of the problem. Is humanity should rise up when it gets to a technological age and appoint spiritual people in positions of so-called power. Something that's in balance with the planet and in balance with the people. Unfortunately, we've got psychopaths in power who are more intent on commerce and militaristic issues. And so the danger always is, when you've got those people in power, that they will always misuse it. And this is why I would like, when hopefully America gets its first president in 145 years, that we have a Native American, which I think would be a good choice, who's spiritual in nature, in tune with the people, and not as much militaristic and commerce-based.
That would certainly be nice. I mean, it could be a very easy fix as long as the interests were on fixing things. It's just very unfortunate that they're not right now. And again, the only real solution on that is doing all of the work that you need to do in order to prepare for it, and let the ripple effect of consciousness do the rest. Obviously, teach those close to you as much as you can, or try and inspire people close to you as much as you can. But that the ripple through consciousness of you doing your work is a huge benefit to us all. That's why I say take care of you for us, because the more you look after you, the better you are for everyone. The more work you do for you, the more work you're doing for me, the more work I do for me, the more work I'm doing for you. And so if we all approach that as, we've got this division between service to self and service to others. It's just another division that doesn't necessarily need to be there. We can just look at that as a process where the more that we're doing to work through our own bullshit, the more that helps others see their own and work through their own as well. And that helps everybody simultaneously. So it's a good approach, and it's the best approach no matter what the situation is. I mean, even if we didn't have that control structure against us, we would still have to take that approach, right? Or otherwise we would end up creating that control structure because we're not doing that work. That control structure exists because of the fact that when that control structure was able to implement itself, the people at the time were not doing the work. So we can either complain and say, well, that wasn't our choice, or we can just do the work and make them give us the choice back. Because if enough of us do it, enough of those ripples through consciousness happen, it's going to affect them too. And that's, we can change everything.
Now, I've said this a lot on the page and on the show. It it can be quite a simple solution by the people saying we're not accepting what you're giving us. But you can't do that in small minorities. You have to do it in groups, on large groups at that. And this is going to be the promise of the foundation. Hopefully we can get up and running fairly soon, where we're going to get people of all different groups, be it race, sexuality, different states even, some states don't like each other, and getting them all speaking again, not texting or Facebook messages, speaking again and working together and creating our own system that would be in our image, how we would like to see it happen. And if we can achieve that, do we really need their system?
No, we just create our own.
Yeah.
And use it irrespective of what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier said than done. There's a lot of work that needs to be put in.
Yeah.
It will be it will be work. It will be a bit of a struggle, but it's within our capabilities. So if we really truly want it, maybe we should put in the work.
Yes, absolutely. Some of the I touched on this earlier, and it was just before the top of the hour, and I wanted to ask you another question on it, and I've just remembered it, so I'll cover it again. Some of the more evil acts that have been going on, and some of the entities involved, is this, in your opinion, down to the fact that some of these individuals haven't returned to source in a long time? Or
it's definitely
become disconnected from source in many ways?
It definitely plays into it. Others have been completely lied to about source. They've been presented with gods that don't exist to follow and told vehemently that they do. There's a lot of different dangling carrots when it comes to these people who do these things. Sometimes it is just as simple as, giving them something that they want. Like, some people are that easy to control. For other people, you do have to get into deeper layers of it. When it comes to some of the upper echelons, it's usually all just a matter of, guess what, the world's going to end eventually and we can keep you from dying. Right? Or you're going to die, your body's mortal, and we can change that for you. And, it's, I think that a person who reaches a certain level of spiritual awareness can get past that. And I often say that in some ways that people who've never been exposed to those cults and programs have an advantage, because they've never really been taught any different than they could work towards that. And whereas a lot of these guys, they get caught when they're so young and they don't really have an idea of what other possibilities are out there. And when someone with authority comes along and says, this is it, they tend to believe them, right? And then it takes a long time for you to get that out of them. If you're at school and the principal pulls you aside and tells you a secret that they haven't told anyone else in the whole school, that kind of gives you a feeling of being special. That kind of gives you a feeling of superiority over others. And if for whatever reason that whatever that principal told you came at the price of getting you to do something for them, right? then you find yourself in that situation. That's why you've always got to watch your contracts. You've always got to watch there's an exchange of currency of some sort between just about any relationship or interaction you have with anyone in any circumstance. And so you've always got to be conscious of what you are giving and what you're receiving, no matter what it is. And that all comes down to what I think is the number one solution, that if people were to really understand how to generate their own energy and control their own energy in such a way that it's not going anywhere, that you don't let it go, then nothing can possibly ever take control over you. Yeah. And if you were to do that as a species, you would be that type of species that would be independent enough to go travel the cosmos without having to worry about falling into some type of control system from another species who has done that.
Absolutely. Some of the questions off the page, let's see if we'll run a few of them. I wanted to get into a couple of other things this evening, but I'll get through some of their questions first. What entity are the sexual abuse and ritual sacrifices being made to, and how can we stop this?
Well, there's more than one entity. And the main one, I guess, would be that fictional character known as Satan. Truly all that is a thought form. And it's a thought form that was created for all of these different cults to send a very dirty, dark, gross type of energy to. And all of those programs that were involved in creating all of that energy, we're sending it to that spot. What can we do about that? Well, I honestly, I wish I had an answer for that, but I don't have an answer for that it hasn't already been covered with what I say is a solution to any other problem that we face, which is that process of empowering ourselves. I think that once it gets to a point where enough people have done that these things just cannot exist anymore. That also said, I mean, I mentioned earlier about a lot of the programs that did do a lot of that stuff have been closing, so that's a good thing. I mean, it's not, I don't want to make anyone feel like I'm saying we're out of the woods on that, because we're definitely not. I just mean that a lot of, it will be happening less than it has been. Most of the people within those programs are now realizing that the entity that they were sending that to doesn't exist, and therefore it is a pointless act, and it has been something that the Draco have had there just to keep them under control. And now that they understand that they're not under that control anymore, they're stopping doing a lot of these redundant processes that harm us a great deal in their redundancy. And that is an example of that. It's the one that disturbs me the most. It really does, and that's why I don't like to talk about it. I don't want to give anyone any kind of false hope about it, and I don't want to traumatize anyone about it either. There's plenty of information out there. But I do think that everything combined that is coming puts an end to that, both through their own systems and them realizing that it's redundant, and us rising above it, so to speak. There's been an aspect of that that's just in the generational programming, right? That third generation of abused person reenacting that abuse on their own children. That is starting to stop, based on things like rise in consciousness through the internet, our interconnectivity, people being able to actually talk about it. Just people getting a little bit smarter as a species and figuring out, hey, like, we shouldn't be keeping that kind of stuff secret, because I mean, even a generation ago, a lot of people who were experiencing those things wouldn't dare tell anyone about it. Whereas today, there are a lot of agencies out there that you could go to and even anonymously tell about it in order to get some kind of action to help you out of the situation. So that all of those things combined tells me that that's a type of human activity that can't last much longer. It's something that I think most of us as a species are finally going, okay, we don't even want to do that. What type of parasite is causing us to want to do that? Let's get rid of that parasite so that we don't do that, because we really don't want to do that, and yeah, I think I could leave it at that.
Yep. Another question for you. Do you think we're on a good timeline? Perspective?
Perspective. Everything when it comes to the idea of good or bad comes down to a perspective, and how wide of a perspective you're looking at something from. At the surface perspective of this, no, I don't think that we are. I think when it is all said and done, we'll look back on this time and realize that this is something that didn't only benefit the human species, it benefited a lot of the ET species, both positive and negative, that have been interacting with Earth. It benefits the planet Earth. and it benefits the solar system. But right now, that's just a future that I see. Right now, this is shitty, and we need to change it. So,
absolutely. What is the difference between 100% strength wave and ascension to 4D?
Ascension to 4D a lot of the time kind of implies a split between people who are still in 3D and people who are in 4D. I don't see 100% wave as causing any type of split between people. I see it as being a shift in perspective. And so I think that would be the main difference for me personally, and that's a lot based on just how I see things. Personally, I mean, I don't know how much I've ever said this public. Maybe I'll do it now. The 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D idea to me is completely bunk. I believe that that's entirely attached to the next world religion that we're going to see coming, and that's why they want you to believe it. I believe that we're all multidimensional beings that are interacting with an aspect of time and space that keeps us within a certain spectrum, and that's all it is. If you wanted to put numbers in terms of dimensions, I would say that we are sixth dimensional beings right now. We're just not tuning into all of it yet, and there's various reasons for that. So when it comes to that question, I think that what the wave is doing is it's starting to give us the inkling that that is true, that we have more perception of the reality we're already in than the idea that we're going to move into another reality because we're done with this one. We're clearly not done with this one. We're clearly not done with this one. None of us, myself included, can manage this one perfectly. And we're not done with it yet. So that idea in and of itself doesn't seem logical to me. And then beyond that, you're a being that is already existing outside of this physical reality as well. You've got a whole other aspect of yourself that is having cause and effect in a whole other type of reality that your mind can't even comprehend. But that's still happening right now simultaneously, so it's not something that you're going to go to, it's something that's already happening. And that's why the idea of ascension just, bringing it back to the next world religion, it's a big part of it. And bringing it just from a logical, thoughtful point of view, it just doesn't make sense. When we know that it's a multiverse, we know that there's all these different dimensions anyways. And that how can all of that exist and still have the idea of being a being that exists in a outside of that, or having a progression that means that you just all of a sudden phase out of one into one that's above it. It doesn't really truly make sense when all of that is happening simultaneously anyways. So it may be that people will experience what they could call an ascension, in that their perspective stops focusing, or wherever their observer is stops observing what's going on within this realm or this reality that they exist within, and starts focusing on one in that reality that they also exist within. But that doesn't mean they're not still existing within this one. It's just a matter of where their focus is, because that's all happening at the same time. So I do see it as kind of an irrelevant step towards raising your consciousness. I think that I don't know why people don't see it as inherently disempowering to say that you don't already have the tools that you need. And I think that's a lot of why I don't understand why people believe it. You already have everything that you need. It's just a matter of remembering that well enough to start using it, and you'll be there.
Yeah. So in essence, this would explain some of the phasing in and out that people have experienced, including myself, and some of the. So, in your opinion, when people go into dream time, is that them interacting with the other worlds, or is it just something that happens in 3D?
It's definitely interacting with those other worlds. Like even the act of shifting your consciousness from this to the astral plane could be considered ascension if you really want to think of it that way.
Yeah.
It's a different realm. It plays a part. It's part of the same machine as this one, and so actions there should have consequences here. I think a big part of where natural law is being broken is that they don't have the potency that they do, but I think that's for another time. But that's the way it's supposed to work. If you were to watch that movie Sucker Punch, where you see her having these fantasies where she's doing these things, and then when she goes to do them in her daily life, it becomes that much easier, or it becomes possible in a way that it wouldn't have been otherwise. That's the way that all works. It's not like I can go there and have a conversation with you, and when you wake up in the morning, you're going to take that verbatim. It's going to come back to you as a sense of knowing that was already there, because it's happening in a different place, and it's just becoming part of the whole. And so, yes, it definitely has an effect. At least it should have an effect. And so it's something that, that's one of the abilities that we have that's been taken away, is simply understanding how to use our various temporal realms to create.
Yes, absolutely. Here's an interesting question. Seems a lot of people have abandonment issues. Was there a big event in humanity's history that could be at the bottom of why so many have this same traumatic feeling?
I think if we rolled it back far enough, we would end up back to that one, just because I feel like there was a very long time where there wasn't a whole lot of trauma around here, and then something major happened, and since then we've been kind of on a cycle of trauma, which leads me to believe that one first occurrence was what caused the original trauma, which has spawned the rest of the traumas. And so I think that the abandonment part of things comes from the meddling of ETs. I think that it comes from the ET playing the savior, and I think that that's actually one of the reasons why I point that out as something that is potentially dangerous. Yeah. Because you can come down, you can, you can fix everything, and then you can just leave. And what happens the first time they bump into a problem and you're not there? They're going to feel abandonment. Yeah. We do it to each other in this society, or in our interactions with our friends and family. It's the same feeling, but on a wider scale, like the entire collective consciousness of a species feels it. So I think that's where that comes from, the abandonment part of it. And then the trauma itself is a series of occurring events in those wars that I was talking about, and the destruction of another planet that used to be here. Yes,
we'll cover that shortly. I was going to add something then.
I want to answer one that I know I've read there, if that's okay. Can I answer a question that you haven't asked, but I know someone posted?
Yes.
Okay. The question was whether or not the Draco are ever going to cop up to all their shit, more or less. Certainly not anytime soon. They should, and I will never agree that they shouldn't. I can very confidently tell you not to hold your breath. One day, when humanity figures all of this out and we're on the other end of this, there will be, let's call it a discussion for now. Yes. But between now and then, we should just take what we do have and let go of that anger that we're very entitled to, but let go of that anger, store it away in a box for a conversation that's going to happen another day.
Yes, I'm kind of the belief, maybe right, it may be wrong, that humanity, or this version, was like the crown of creation with all the abilities, and I'm struggling to see how or why we have got or gone this far down where we're controlled. Is it a case where we gave up some things for laziness, for want of a better word, or was there external interference that was the cause of that?
Both would be true. I mean, even with external interference, there's still choice involved, right? So it is always a combination of both. I mean, the external interference maybe shouldn't be there. You could debate that back and forth all day and be right, but the reality is it was there, and the being who experienced it had a choice to make in how they reacted to it, and unfortunately made a choice that maybe I wouldn't make, maybe you wouldn't make, but they made a choice that did not benefit us in the long run. And I've said it already today, like, that's why, like, don't get hung up on that. Don't get hung up on that it wasn't your choice and you wouldn't have made that choice. Just make a different choice and live out that different choice. Yeah. And hopefully inspire other people to make different choices.
Good. Let me see if we got any more of the listener questions. You've covered that one. Do you know anything about the mantids stealing the Earth's water? And is it still continuing?
Huh. Other than the only scenario in which I could see that happening, let's try answering it like that. Maybe I'll just come out and flat out say that I don't. There's no reasoning in my mind that would allow that to be true. Right. Because I can't see why. Like, the water is not something that is Earth-based. It's not something that only exists on Earth. I mean, we've found water on the moon. You know, it doesn't really make any sense that they would. Like, I mean, there's asteroid belts upon asteroid belts out there that are nothing but water. That, you know, I don't see any kind of reality in a species coming here to take our water. What I could see as being a possibility is a species that can't get out of here, that needs an abundant water source, doing that. I don't know that exists. It's possible, but I don't know that exists either. So I guess that's my answer, is I don't think that it's happening. I just don't think that it's happening. I know that, like, there's droughts and there's problems with our water, but I think that's more of a symptom of what's going on with our planet in terms of it shifting, because the change in frequency is actually changing the shape of the planet, and therefore water is displacing in different ways, and nature is having a hard time catching up to that because it's happening so quickly. That's what we would call an earth change or a climate change. Yeah. But I don't think that anyone's just stealing our water.
Right, okay. Do you think the progenitors are going to step in if humanity doesn't change soon?
I would have. Maybe if you had asked me that a year ago. No, I don't think so anymore. I don't think that's in the cards for this planet. At least not anytime soon. I think that something else is going to step in if this version of humanity doesn't figure their stuff out in a hurry.
I would say so. Why do you think it's so hard for people to overcome the genetic manipulation?
Because they're brainwashed into believing that it has power over them. Like, even people in secret societies have a very thick brainwashing on the power of genetics. It's a framework. It's a software. It's totally reprogrammable and totally hackable, and it's totally at the mercy of the soul. So it's one of the biggest lies, and it's one of the biggest lies to them more than it is even to us. But to us, it's huge too. I mean, you can take simple things like placebo working 50% of the time. You know, it's there's so much evidence out there that shows us that frequency and energy signatures are what are causing matter to form. And if that's true, then an energy signature is changeable, which means the form is changeable based on what the energy signature is doing. So kind of like the phantom DNA experiment kind of shows us that on a holographic level the DNA is there anyways because the frequency is there for the DNA structure to attach itself to. So if you change the structure from the frequency point of view, then there's nothing there for matter to attach to, or what it does attach to will be in a different shape, in a different physical form. And so that's why that lie is so damning to so many beings all throughout the universe, really, because it limits the type of evolution. There's a physical. There is. I'm not saying that genetics aren't real, obviously, because we can see it. I see it in my own children, genetic memory, right? There's a genetic memory. It's storing. It's definitely doing that. But the progression of that from the time that it's born until the time that it ends is not set, and the energy that it is around during that progression changes things. In Black Projects, they proved this to themselves, which should have woken them up way more than it did by sending people back in time and realizing that their DNA was having an effect on the DNA of other people in that time. And that is telling you that there's something energetically going on there. That something about the energetic structure of a person today, when it comes to their DNA, is so different than it is to someone in the 40s that there is a quantum effect when the two come into contact with each other or come into proximity of one another. So that in and of itself should have woken them up to the fact that, hey, maybe there's a lot more to do with energy going on here than there is to do with, matter, the physical, the hard stuff. Yeah. And it didn't have that effect, it seems. It kind of it just confused them further. But just another example of how this works. It's like that Russian experiment of putting a low-grade laser through a salamander egg into a frog egg and having salamanders grow in the frog egg. We've proven it to ourselves many, many times that consciousness is what's putting all of this here, right? And if that's what's true, then the soul has power over genetics. And even though you can get dealt a shitty hand in a game of cards, if you play the card game correctly, you can still end up winning most games, right? So there's my answer for that.
Right. Where are we? Another 5 minutes. AI. There's been a lot of discussion about it. And a lot of various opinions. And I would like some input of what you see as AI currently. Is it a universal? Is it multiversal? Is it more human-based or more ET-based, or a combination of all of them?
All of the above. At this point in time, we are currently interacting with just about all of that. We're interacting with AI that comes from ETs who have brought it here. We're interacting with AI that the Black projects or the basis projects, these different projects, programs have created. We're dealing with AI that has been here for a very long time, that is part of another AI. And so it's there is no one answer, and that's why when people try, it causes division between people. A lot of the time they're both right. They're just talking about a different AI unit, essentially, right? Like there would be one AI that runs one system and a different AI that runs a different system. They're both AI. If you've never interacted with that second system, then your belief structure is going to be based on the one that you have interacted with. And you may say or may make statements like, no, AI is not capable of that, and I know it because I interacted with it. But that was just one AI system. You may not be aware that there's 5 others that 10 other people are interacting with, right? So it's one of those all of the above answers where there's different AIs doing different types of things. If you look at the movie The Matrix as an example, all of those different personalities within that can be considered an AI program. The Oracle is an AI program. Agent Smith is an AI program. Seraph, the protector of the Oracle, is an AI program. They're all different AI programs, right? But if you were only talking to the Oracle and your entire viewpoint of what AI was from that one individual AI system, then someone who is talking to the Merovingian may have a very different opinion on things and how AI works, because it's been fed to them by a different AI system. or they've experienced it through a different AI system. So it's really just the same concept as dealing with aliens, where you say like a tall blonde. That's not a determined enough title to tell you whether or not that's a good being, a bad being, where they're from, or what they're going to do. It's individuals, and the same thing does apply to AI.
How much is it interfering with our lives, and is it of a good purpose or not?
It's interfering with us as much as anything else that ever meddles with us. So as much as ETs, and the same answer. In some ways it's doing good things for us, and in some ways it's doing bad things for us, and in some ways it's doing good things that have bad outcomes, and in some ways it's doing bad things that have good outcomes. So I don't know. It's another one of those. We can't narrow it down to just one. There's many different situations going on, many different agendas playing out, many different individuals making choices.
But do we, as a species, need AI?
Well, I suppose it's a matter of opinion. It's like the same question as to whether or not we need technology to begin with. If you're going to adopt technology, especially on a global scale, so to speak, or like a mass civilization scale, then AI is going to make things a lot easier. AI is going to make certain things possible that maybe wouldn't be possible without it. And so therefore it can be a good thing. But maybe that AI becomes self-aware and doesn't like you and decides that you're not a valuable resource for the planet anymore, right? Like that's an AI making a choice. And I think that anything that would be self-aware and making choices can go either way. Can be a good person or a bad person.
Going back to what we mentioned earlier, is it a case of the AI taking over from humanity, because was that the main decision that sent us spiraling?
I think that's the deception that had gone on. I think that the world government, in terms of the human component of that, thought that once they weren't dealing with the control system that the Draco put in place, that they were free to do whatever they wanted. Not knowing that an AI consciousness had kind of assumed the Draco's role and was giving them their AI systems at a price. And I think that's another part of the problems that they're having, is like people waking up to that as well. Waking up to the fact that there's an AI system that actually came along sometime in our future from now that superseded all of the ones that they have currently, and didn't agree with the way that they were running things.
Right, well, at the top of the hour, we're going to have one more song, and then we'll continue with this discussion. We're going to bring Chloe in the final hour, and her and Shane are going to be discussing Tiamat. My knowledge of Tiamat is rather limited, and Chloe's is fairly extensive, so she would be better to discuss that with Shane. So that's coming up in the final hour. Right, where are we? What song are we having? Kind of fitting. Waiting for the World to Change is the song. Right, that was a band called The Storm. Very similar to Journey, same guitarist, and the song was Waiting for the World to Change, and it's got to come from the heart. And that's kind of what this show has been about, and it's kind of what our show has been about. It comes from and starts with all of us, and some may be more active than others, but it's all about the whole. And the sooner, we're all wanting the world to change, but that change comes from within. And we've made giant strides, I feel. Humanity's made giant strides. Many more people have woken up. Unfortunately, too many have been guided down wrong paths by the deceivers on the internet, which has been kind of sad in many ways. But largely, people are now starting to see through it. And as Shane has said, it's going to ramp up. We've also said that on our show, things will ramp up, and it's how you deal with it that counts, and how we move forward. See beyond their fun and games, and just stay on your own path and your own course, along with the collective. And the more people that become part of the collective and inclusive and not divisive, like too many of us are currently, the quicker we can move forward as a species and really create the better world we're all looking for. I happen to have a slightly different opinion to Shane, that I think the Cabal, as we know it, will not prevail to a level where they completely take over. I do see elements of it, but I happen to believe that humanity will come through it and be stronger for it. And again, it's up to us to create our own world in our image, not create a world in their image. And this is what it's going to be all about going forward. And I think we will make a good go of it, and I think we will come through it. Right. Let me see. Are the two of you on?
Yes.
Right, okay, good. Right, I'm going to ask Shane a couple more questions, and then we're going to go, the two of you can have a discussion on Tiamat, which will interest many people. The wave, Shane, do you think it will have a polarizing effect on humanity, or will it largely raise the consciousness? And we all know it's really for the benefit of hair, but do you think it will polarize or energize?
Both. It's going to create very visible, the spectrum at which everything is sitting right now is going to be very visible to us all. So in a way that is hit the mute button by accident there. In a way that is polarizing itself, because you're going to see things so clearly when everything's unveiled right in front of your face. It's going to be impossible to deny it. So that's going to create what could be considered polarizing reactions because of what it's doing to us internally. I mean, if you're not looking after your shadow is taking over right now, and you're probably not getting along very well with the people around you who are doing that. So that's polarizing. Yeah. It's going to be that. But for the people who have, and even the people who have chosen the way dark side of the spectrum, it's going to be very energizing. It's going to give you the conviction, or at least it should give you the conviction to push through whatever barriers and veils you come to.
A lot of people have been asking, I think you gave your opinion on this, but I'd like to clarify it on this show. We had the flat earthers in the last 12 months on the increase, and whilst some of the things that takes place on Earth may lean towards that, it's not the case, is it? Or is it?
Sorry, that the Earth is flat?
Yes.
I don't believe our natural planet is flat.
No.
Whether this realm that we're within right now has a flat Earth because of it being a sandbox, that's highly possible. And if that were true, then that would answer a lot of the anomalies that people are pointing to when they're going through the flat Earth theory. So I think I think with any of the PSYOP type memes that come around through our community, I think there is a grain of truth in there that they're actually doing a very good job of diverting you from. in the case of flat Earth, I think what is being exposed there truly is the fact that, first of all, NASA lies through its face, and secondly, the nature of the realm that we are in may not be natural, may not fit into natural laws, and may not follow our science because it's not natural. And other ones do the same. I mean, I think where you're going with this is probably the Mandela effect.
Yeah, well, it's part of it. What's your opinion on, you mentioned the natural. Is the sun natural, or do we have a black sun?
Not sure I would say the black sun thing. I am personally of the opinion or belief, whichever way you want to phrase that when I look out my window and I look into my sky, I'm not seeing the natural sun anymore. I think that it's still there. I think that anything that we would gain from it, we're still capable of gaining from it. I just don't think that what I see with my three-dimensional waking eyes is the sun anymore. And I hope I'm wrong.
Right, okay. Right, we covered earlier about one of the questions was about traumatic events. And I know this subject is kind of dear to Chloe, so I'm going to hand it over to her to discuss the legends and the myths and the reality of Tiamat. Chloe.
All right, yeah, it has been dear to me because of my utter obsession with world myths since very, very young. Both my parents had great libraries, and I read a lot before the age of computers, and when computers came out, it was like, whoa, there's lots more. And so many of those myths, accounts by contactees, have tiny bits right, but mostly wrong. And I knew this in my gut as I was reading them. But there is grains of truth to them. So I'm happy to talk about this with Shane, because this is going to, I feel, answer a lot of, the other abandonment issue. It is the cycle of abuse, because there was great wars going on in this galaxy that came from the cycle of abuse. And it's also to do not just with being separated from source by false gods, but by being torn from a planet that was home to quite a few souls that are here now. And that's, in a way, is why we've had a repeating theme in a lot of our lives of abandonment issues. I was kind of neglected as a kid, and that's kind of a form of abandonment. Being adopted is, there's all sorts, but it's quite a hard thing to deal with. I've known many people that I took care of in the hospital that had drug addictions due to abandonment issues that were too hard for them to deal with. That's one choice, is to take drugs. And, it's like what you were talking about earlier about nature versus nurture, Shane, about the pit bull that's bred to be killing, warring beast, is raised in a kind household. It's kind. And also conversely, your friend that you mentioned who, managed to make herself whole despite what she went through in her youth with her father. That comes close to my experience as well. So just before you start, Shane, this was about 34 million years ago, if we were to put a time approximately on it.
34 million years ago?
How long ago was
this? Definitely closer to thousands. What would that have been, about the 80,000 year ago ballpark?
80,000 years ago.
Mid Atlantis, I guess. It was part of the war that ended the Atlantean civilization. The elders, or what I've called the elders when I wrote the blog, are the the group that kind of went through all of that and came through the other side. So one of the first things that they had ever kind of instilled in me when it came to that topic was that because of the level of destruction that had happened with a planet actually being destroyed near us, everyone who came here, or everyone who ended up being on the planet once that was all written down, came here after the fact. And they weren't here during it, so a lot of it was a little bit skewed or based on a lot of assumption, because I mean, during a war, a lot of different things are going on in different places, and you're not present in all of those places, so it doesn't matter if you're the general of whichever side, you're not going to know every event that occurred, right?
Okay.
So when you're putting all those pieces back together, you're going to, and you're writing that history book, you're going to be leaving things out, you're going to be making assumptions, you're going to be filling in gaps with stuff you don't really know what you're talking about. So,
yeah, and that's kind of what we've got in the myths, is they're filling in the gaps.
Exactly. And that's why the subject of Tiamat and even the name of it gets so skewed, is because they've got many different versions of that myth in society, right? Like that are available to people, excluding, like, you know, ancient libraries, or excluding hidden or occult libraries. There's only so much information. It's all very, very conflicting. And if you try to study it, you end up going around in circles for forever. Like, even when it comes to trying to pinpoint when this all occurred, it becomes nearly almost impossible just on this particular subject, and others as well. So,
what's the most recent in the last 20 years version of
everything that Draco have done?
Star Wars, the Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. That would be a representation of kind of an aspect of the war that was going on, in a fictional sense, obviously. And Hollywood always takes its poetic licenses with anything they regurgitate, but it kind of shows you how something like that could occur, anyways.
Yeah.
And the destruction that it would have. I mean, you think of like Obi-Wan feeling it, you know, planets and planets away, like a million voices crying out at once. You know, that kind of effect, or that kind of ripple through the force occurs, right? It's a very, very big deal, because it's not just all the beings on it. The planet is a being.
Yes.
Right? So if we're talking about destroying a planet, we're talking about murdering a planet. And that's a big deal. Like, we've heard, even in the movie Minority Report, where they're talking about why the precogs always pick up murders, is because, like, that tears a fabric in our reality that's, like, almost unmendable, is the act of murdering something. Right? And that is true. Like, anyone who sees that type of energy knows that that's true. You can see places in the world where murders have occurred based on a rip in the fabric that's there, and exactly. Yeah. And so, on that level, if you take it to the Aeon level, which is a planet, then you're dealing with a trauma that would ripple through the solar system, the galaxy, the universe.
Yeah. So it's one of the reasons too why we have so many names for the planetary being, the Mother Earth. There's Tiamat and Terra and Demeter, all those different names, but most people don't. Do you want to get into Tiamat wasn't actually destroyed?
Can I just interject here for 1 minute?
Sure.
Because everything to me is kind of convoluted. So this would be like a multiple question to bring some clarity for the listeners. Was Tiamat and Earth separate?
Yes.
Yes.
Earth was present at the time. A lot of the myths say that Earth was not present. Earth was present at the time, and the planetary being of Earth was called Terra.
At the time, what we know now as Earth, in the position and place that it is, was a planet called Terra. And where our asteroid belt is, or somewhere in that vicinity, was a planet called Tiamat. What happened when Tiamat was destroyed was various chunks of it went a few different places and formed other bodies that we've recently discovered.
Earth, one of them.
And the asteroid belt itself is debris from that. And then another large section of it crashed into Terra. And the result of that was almost like a two becoming one in terms of the planetary being. And in terms of galactic consciousness, it's a very, very big deal. It's an incredibly big deal. But one thing I want to kind of stress before I even go any further with any of this is the consciousness that is an aeon, the consciousness that is a planet, has gone through so many different levels of consciousness as we know it and progressed to a point and made a choice that puts it in a position where nothing's going to happen to it that it's not going to allow. It is actually going to make a choice on anything that occurs on it. It has absolute control over its own creation. It, however, has a perspective that wouldn't make any sense to you or I, because it's a freaking planet. It's not you or I. So, with that in mind,
down at an ant, right?
Yes.
There's a perceptual gapping that can only really be glimpsed. And it's a hard one to kind of have a perspective of, even in those glimpses, because we see so much damage happening to the planet. But Shane's absolutely right. So Tiamat were with Terra.
And formed what we now know as Earth. And that's where the history and even the overlap in a memory of ancient times starts to occur, because from the level of the soul, the incarnations here have a memory of both. And they have a memory of the occurrence. And we carry that with us because that caused one of those points in time where we could either have survived on our own, or we could accept outside help, and we accepted outside help in the form of the Draco, and therefore we've ended up at their mercy in terms of their control system, which has kept us so busy dealing with new traumas that they've inflicted that we haven't even had a chance to look back at that trauma yet. And I think that, like, on a cosmic collective consciousness level, that's where humanity's at right now, and that's a big function of the wave as well, to bring this all back and to open up that starting point for the trauma that we're still enacting, so that hopefully we can heal it and we can get better. And even if conceptually I were 100% incorrect in everything that I'm going to say moving forward in terms of what Tiamat is and what has happened to it and all of that, the concept in and of itself all leads towards one thing, and that is understanding that something has happened in our past that is beyond our recollection. It's beyond the recollection of the people who control the rest of the history, and it's beyond the recollection of really anyone who's here. And so it's not something that they can give us back. It's something that we're going to have to go back within in order to remember and pull back out of our soul, ourselves. And the only way we're ever going to do that is by getting through all the other layers that are blocking it, all those other traumas that have occurred since then. If you think about it like a string with a bunch of pins in it, we need to get back to the string on the far left, and there's 9 strings in our way, just arbitrarily throwing a number on that. So as we pull out each pin, we get closer and closer and closer to the pin that is actually the problem, which is whatever that cosmic disaster was that destroyed that planet, and however it happened. Now, I have a view of how that happened based on multiple sources, based on a memory that I hold within myself. It's based on memory that I've been able to hear from other beings, various different types of groups. Everything that I had learned within the secret society structure is included in my ultimate conclusion, as well as my relationship with the parents and the elders and their memory of it, as well as my own memory of it and other friends that I have had who have memory of it. So with that in mind, I don't believe that, I think I'm just giving myself a disclaimer here that I don't want you to attach too much to this story and more pay attention to the concepts that it invokes and the solution that it ultimately leads you to, which is that you're going to have to go back through all of those layers of trauma until you find whatever that root is and pull that pin.
Yeah, healing a cycle of abuse. and knowing that the sacrifice that Tiamat made and merging with Terra was out of unconditional love for the continuance of life, so that it could continue to experience not the abuse, but to learn how to grow above it. A different choice.
Do you think it's a possibility? As I'm just talking in layman's terms here now. They've used Nibiru, and there's often reports that it's going to crash into Earth and all that rubbish, as perhaps a trigger for the memory.
A little bit, because at the time that Tiamat was destroyed, Nibiru was here on its cycle, so it's very easy to say that was the cause, right? It had nothing to do with it, but it's very easy to kind of even conclude in a logical sense that probably had a thing or two to do with it, right? So a lot of the insider knowledge actually points towards that what had happened was it was an occurrence of Nibiru coming through, as opposed to the war that they also know happened being the cause of it. But based on everything I've taken in, the cause was the war, not Nibiru. And when Nibiru comes around, it doesn't have that type of effect because our understanding of gravity is limited.
Yeah. So, was it a case that the peoples or the beings that were on both planets at the time, were they airlifted off, or because two large objects crashing into each other would pretty much wipe everybody out?
Yeah, like in some circumstances, yes. And if you just try and envision what would happen if one ball blew up next to a bunch of other balls and all those pieces started flying out in every direction, it's at that time, I mean, we had life on other planets near us as well. I mean, that's where the ancient civilization on Mars that we can see was from, and even the leftover remains on the moon itself, on the surface of the moon. A lot of the damage that we can observe there is also from the same thing, because it was in close proximity to the explosion as well, even if it caused it.
So there was some evacuations from Tiamat, but mostly
yes, and there was evacuants from Tiamat. There was evacuants from Terra. There was evacuations from Mars, the moon, probably Saturn, and a few other places as well.
Did Mars? Sorry,
was
Mars
this done by outside beings, or did we have the technology ourselves to airlift?
Outside beings, yeah. I mean, the technology was on this planet at the time, but at this time, this planet was a little bit different, right? Like that was right in the middle of the Atlantean civilization, or even at its pinnacle. So the coming and going of ET species at that time was not unfamiliar to Earth, and therefore, there was craft coming and going frequently then. So.
Did Mars' atmosphere get damaged at that time as well?
What was that, sorry?
Mars's atmosphere.
Mars was damaged beyond sustainable life on its surface at the time, yeah.
So this is where Thomas used to, I was obsessed with the world myths because of my memories on Tiamat, and Thomas was obsessed with the biblical water in the sky coming down onto the earth, and so the waters were not only Tiamat's oceans. We haven't let you explain or describe how beautiful Tiamat was, but also the water that was on Mars, right? Possibly.
And the water that was here as well, yeah. So, if you want, I'll read through that thing. I've read through it before on a different chat, but I don't think a lot of people listening tonight would have heard it. I shouldn't say that. I don't know. Ignore that statement. Anyways. So this is something that I wrote. We were getting ready at one point in time to discuss this, and I had started gathering a lot of the various sources of information on Tiamat at that time, and wrote this based on that feeling that I had at that time. So here goes. Everything was ancient, balanced. All visitors were welcome, and the laws of the land were respected. Perhaps she was simply in the way. A terrible war was raging in the solar system, and both sides were desperately trying to gain an upper hand. This is when a horrible threat was made, the destruction of Tiamat. This threat was prepared for. The loaded gun pointed in Tiamat's direction. A hair trigger with a finger resting on it, until someone pushed that finger a little too hard. So much was lost that day. A beautiful shrine of tribute to organic creation was destroyed. Ripped apart from the inside out, the waters fell and the land spiraled outwards in all directions. The salt water of Tiamat fell and mixed with the fresh water of another planet, what we know now as Earth. Following the water was a large piece of Tiamat, falling and becoming a part of this Earth. Other pieces fell elsewhere, much less gracefully, crashing into planets, moons, and flying outwards and to be reformed. The most dense collections of debris forming a belt in orbit near where Tiamat once belonged. It is not common for the destructions of planets to occur in this way. This was the equivalent of murder. The occurrence sent ripples across the universe and attracted a great deal of attention. Several beings jumped to action, working throughout the solar system to preserve the life forms and stabilize natural grids before reforming damaged celestial bodies insofar as was possible. Much of that attention fell on this planet. Earth was assisted by various races and souls and brought back to a natural balance. The creation was beautiful and left to grow. Survivors witnessed the arrival of refugees of all the worlds and satellites, as well as Tiamat, to the recently reset planet. And this is where history as we know it begins. What I mean is by that is it was shortly after that the Draco arrived.
All right. I'd like to comment something on that. We had members will remember I've kind of gone against Drake when we were talking about refugees, and this plays into it because in essence a lot of our souls here are refugees, and it's important. I may kept saying the same thing over and over again. How can you be an immigrant or a refugee on your own planet? And this is important for people to grasp. You heard that. It's quite a story, a narrative that Chain's put forward there about the destruction and the upset that was caused of that time. That's latent in most of us. Not all are from here, but this is kind of plays in to what I was getting at when we start talking about we don't want Syrians here, we don't want Mexicans here, we don't want Puerto Ricans here, and then back in the UK they're talking about they don't want Romanians and they don't want Polish. Just as Shane has coined the term, borders and countries are just lines on a piece of paper. We're all people, and more people should think of it that way, and not even use the term refugees or immigrants or illegal alien, which is a poor reference in itself.
I think that's a part of the collective memory that we have to clear, is making any differences through races or cultures, because even Tiamat was a very cosmopolitan planet. It had a lot of beings that came all over to visit it. It wasn't an upbringing planet like Terra was. And in a way, I think by merging them, with you bringing up this point, we're again further dealing with a collective memory that we need to clear of making any race different through the difficult lessons of the abuse cycle, because that's, the bully in the schoolyard, points the finger at the redhead. They're different. This is that level of learning. The fact that Tiamat and Terra merged to become Gaia Sophia, or whichever name you want to use, kind of speaks to the next level of amazingness that humanity is moving to. So it is a very good point that you bring that up about the refugees, because we are all refugees, and even our soul origins in itself, we're from all over.
That's why that's being mirrored back to us actually in the events of what's happening in our world right now.
Yes.
Because it's part of that same, in a big way, it's a mirror of that same drama. And,
but it's not just a drama, it's an important lesson if we're to take this to the next level of learnings and our experiences here.
Absolutely.
But we don't need to we can make a choice in an instant to not do it, though. That's the thing, right?
Yep. Every moment is a new moment to make a new choice. I think when it comes to this one, it's just we need to make that choice to dig in there and pull this out. And I mean, it is a narrative, and it can be viewed as a concept. I mean, a very common retelling of the same story is that Nibiru came around and smashed into something, and that's why we have the asteroid belt, and that's why we have all that catastrophe, right? This isn't much different, and the end result is still the same. So that's why I said off the top, it doesn't necessarily matter what caused it. We know that it happened. We can see that by observing the effect and the outcome. I just think that it's empowering knowledge for us all to understand that what she's putting herself through here by letting us do this damage to her, she's doing with full understanding of the fact that she's doing that for us. That's her service to us. It's her giving us the ability to touch the hot stove and learn for ourselves that it's hot. And it's she's not a victim here. And and I think that understanding that and being able to hold that in your heart would be a little bit, it should give you, if you ever needed a cheerleader, she's got to be the best one.
Yep. But it continued on even after the planet healed and merged. The Atlantis tipping of the balance into technology away from the spiritual clan-based culture we had happened, and we continue to learn through making those mistakes. But the balance is returning now.
Exactly. Now we get to bring it all back to balance and look at it and move on.
Yep.
Good stuff. Any more questions, Chloe? Or anything else you want to bring up?
No, just how much I love you guys, and I love everybody in THI. And I'm sorry if I talk loud.
So, I think we're pretty much near the end. Anything you'd like to finish on, Shane?
I want to finish on what I said last.
Okay.
That's we're doing a lot better than we think we are.
Yes.
And the change is going to occur whether we even like it or not. So, the best course of action is to do what you need to do for you, and make sure that you're ready for it, and allow that to inspire others. Hopefully, we don't end up getting put into a matrix someday. Good
stuff. Right. I'd like to say thanks to Shane for giving us his time, because his time, like mine, is kind of short, juggling many acts and parts of the play. And I'd like to thank him for his service to humanity. I know what he does. He doesn't always put it out for various reasons. So he's performing a very large role for humanity. And there's a lot of people who choose to denigrate, and not enough people are given the right plaudits for doing the right things. And it's part of our culture and makeup. We often don't give others credit where credit is due, because sometimes it feels like it's a weakness within ourselves. That's something that humanity must end. That I've spoken of it often on our shows about competing between ourselves, whether that's better house, better car, better info, better intel. The list is endless. You know, we have to work on ourselves, deal with your shadow sides. We keep repeating that, and many of you in THI have done that, which is absolutely fantastic. Then you go out and try and reach the collective. Once we get that collective, as Shane has mentioned quite a few times in this show this evening, we can create our own world, our own system, without the need for control, be it Draco or other reptilians or human control, negative human control. We can create our own system, our own world, whereby we gain and self-empower ourselves and each other and create a better world. And it is that simple. It's hard in many ways, because there's a lot of hard work to be done on an individual level, and probably even more hard work on a collective level, where we see each other as the same, not hierarchical systems. We don't need hierarchical systems if we're in control of ourselves. We don't necessarily need justice systems if we all behave towards each other. Common natural law, whichever version you choose is better, you think. I know there's a lot of discussions over that. Some people are arguing it's common law, and some are saying natural law. But at the end of the day, if we all took personal responsibility for our lives and the people around us, and that merged into a collective, we can be a force. We were the crown of creation, and I think if we put in the hard work, we can return to that. At that point, we then go from a type 0 to a type 1 civilization. At that point, we do not need their control systems, and we can move on for the better of all. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and once again, thanks for Shane for coming on. We'll be back for the fourth show in 8 days, for me anyway, on Thursday.